Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Open Line. We have with us Vice Mayor Jim Shulman talking about all things involving the Metro Council. But we just spent the first part of the show talking about the Community Oversight Board. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Ann. Hello, Ann?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
There were 150 at least very, very qualified candidates that applied for those positions and that showed up on time for their interviews, and there were very clear and concise guidelines that were set forth for those interviews, and those candidates that did come and applied followed those very concise guidelines with to 100% for the most part. But one candidate was given very unfair treatment and was allowed to miss his appointment and was given another time to come after the 3 p.m. deadline on Saturday, which is the total opposite of what transparency and what the Community Oversight Board is being formed to prevent. So I'd like to know what the Vice Mayor has to say about that, as I know and have been led to believe he had some great part to do with the decision to allow that one citizen to right off the bat not follow the rules and guidelines set forth for the interview process.
All right, well, let's talk about that. So I think, are you talking about James Shaw? I believe you're talking about James Shaw. Is that right?
I wasn't going to mention names, but
okay, let's talk about that. I appreciate your call. So she's obviously upset about this.
And I'll tell you, fair question, fair concerns. We heard a lot about it, and I take responsibility for it. Okay, we knew going in logistically with 150 people was going to be difficult. So we had council members, the clerk staff, the council staff all working because we had to get people through. We gave everybody 10 minutes. We had set times for interviews. People had to sign up. And yeah, Ann's right. I mean, we had to put informational letters to say, this is your interview time, you got to sign up, you got to be here. We knew that we might have a problem on Saturday. Mr. Shaw's interview was on Thursday night because we picked a Saturday afternoon, governor's inauguration. There was the Women's March was in front of the courthouse. It was supposed to rain. And you were going to have to go through a different door to get into the building. So we knew we might have some problems on Saturday. Everybody was pretty good. I mean, people were on time for their interviews, which was good. What I will tell Ann is that what you didn't see was that we really tried to be accommodating to everyone. We weren't trying to give anybody preferential treatment. We really worked hard to get all the nominations and the questionnaires in.
Was there somebody who maybe missed their appointment and then that disqualified them, and that wasn't the case for this person?
No, no. So actually we had a couple people that showed up late. They came in like a minute or two late. We immediately got them to their interview. Okay. Now, because we're on a tight time frame, they might have 8 minutes, 9 minutes, or whatever. We actually called them back and said, hey, you had an extra minute. Do you want to come in? You have an extra 2 minutes. We had people who, again, didn't have email addresses and so forth. And we worked really hard to try to get everybody through. When the situation developed with Mr. Shaw, he was about 15, 20 minutes late for his interview.
He's the hero from the Waffle House shooting.
Right.
He's well known. He was the Grand Marshal of the Christmas parade after all that craziness. But he's very well known. He's
very well known, and all the cameras were sitting in there waiting for him. He was late. I was the first person he ran into when he came up the steps, and it's like, Mr. Shaw, you missed your interview. And he said, I went to the wrong building. He went across the street. He couldn't get in the building. They finally sent him over. So he was late. And so the question was, what do we do about that? and there was a discussion among council members. There was a variety of opinions. In the end, after thinking through what we had tried to do for everyone, and that was to accommodate and basically try to get all these people through, I wanted to accommodate. I just think that's the right thing to do. If people are willing to fill out all that stuff, I want to accommodate, and may disagree, and I certainly understand that. We had an individual that came in late on Saturday afternoon who missed her entire time slot. She was 50 minutes late for her interview. Because we had time slots still available, we let her interview as well. You know, obviously it came after Mr. Shaw, but again, in order to, it was almost like we were going, trying to make sure we accommodated everyone, so we went overboard to let people in. It just so happened that the most, probably the most visible person coming in, Mr. Shaw, was the one who was late, the first one, the first time around.
And he was not selected. He's not on the board.
Right. So he's not on the board.
Okay. All right, Ann. Thank you for the question.
It's a good question.
Call back if you want to call back. Yeah. Thank you, Ann. Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hello?
Lucy, hello.
Well, hey there.
Hello. Go right ahead.
I'm a little late tuning into this news story, but, you know, I've got a few questions here, and I got a couple of comments. First, I want to know if Tennessee still has a sunshine law. I saw a gentleman on Open Line a couple of weeks ago from the city council, and he reminded us that we do, so I'm assuming that we do. The second question is the person from the state legislature that is presenting this bill to modify these oversight committees, does that person have anything to do with any police department in the state of Tennessee prior? Does that person have anything to do with Metro Nashville Police Department prior, or the Fraternal Order of Police prior? And my comment is, I think that the city council here has done what the people wanted it to do. You guys have gone to great lengths and great care to do what you do. Lawmaking is, like they say, making sausage. And you guys, I think, with this issue have gone and done your due diligence. But I look at the state legislature, and to me, it's somewhere between Lord of the Flies is what it's become, and packing fudge. So answer my questions, please, and I'll take your answers off the line.
Lucy, thank you for the call. All right, she's asking specific questions about the person that might be bringing this bill forward. I don't know the answer. Do you know the answer?
Well, I'm not exactly sure who
might be sponsoring the bill.
Yeah, I don't know who's sponsoring the bill, ultimately sponsoring it. I know there were certain people that were talking about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's who's going to bring the bill. So at this point, in answer to Lucy's second question, which was, you know, does the sponsor have any connection with the police department, with the FOP, or with the city of Nashville? We don't know who the sponsor is, so we don't know that as of yet. Sunshine laws, yeah. If you notice with the council, I mean, overall, legislature, sunshine laws, council has sunshine laws. The voting of this process took 5 hours and 15 minutes. We started at 6:30. We went through the voting process, and then we started voting. We got out of there at 11:45 that night.
Wow.
And every vote that was taken was visible. It was recorded. We had to check it. It was on the board. So sunshine, yes. Yeah, lots of sunshine. Not right now. Well, there is some sunshine outside, but it's really cold out
it's
there.
Very cold.
Yeah. But,
very cold, yes.
Lucy had good questions.
Yes,
good.
Lucy, all right, thanks for those questions. What are some other big things on the agenda? I mean, we can, if you want to call in about that Community Oversight Board, go ahead, but we can talk about some other stuff too. What are some other things the council will be dealing with, you know, in the weeks and months to come that are kind of on your radar?
Okay. So a couple of things coming up. We have two big projects, Alliance Bernstein, two economic developments, Alliance Bernstein and Amazon. When those are coming, I don't know. But there's job tax incentives that are being proposed that we will have to consider. There's still the Church Street, the park right across the street from the library, and the land swap. None of those things, at least, I didn't check the agenda completely today, but I don't think it's on the agenda. But those 3 things are coming. The big thing for this council, the thing that I see that is really weighing on people's minds, is that wage increase that didn't happen last year. And I think just talking to council members and watching them and listening to them, it is weighing heavily on their minds. You know, this goes back a couple of years to Mayor Berry and the 3-year pay plan. The first year, 2% happened. Last year, the money wasn't there. And as much as people tried and there was efforts, different ways to do it, it didn't happen. And I think people are very, very troubled by that. And I think there's going to be an effort. So if you're really looking for something really important, a key issue for this council, it's going to be between now and budget time, which is not that far away. It's trying to figure out if it can come up with the resources to take care of what we promised last year.
And the question for me then would be, where would that come from? If you're not going to raise taxes, and I don't know that there's any push to do that, where in the world do you get the money to honor the pay raise?
Right. So the Blue Ribbon Commission, something that Councilman John Cooper created in the budget last year, basically brought together a group of 10 people to start digging. And that committee has started. Emily Evans, a former council member, is chair of that committee. We've had 3 meetings, and we are basically assigned the task of trying to figure out if we can come up with it. Now, I know we'll have additional revenues coming in, but a lot of those revenues sometimes get eaten away at different things.
Because schools need money.
And then you have schools.
And then don't we have increased debt service? So we have some other responsibilities.
So I think you're going to see this Blue Ribbon Commission work very, very hard to try to figure out if there's ways to generate that type of savings. And then you're going to see other council members do the same thing, because we did that last year. There was, you know, I know that sometimes people give politicians a hard time and elected officials, and, you know, people sometimes think highly of the council or don't think highly of the council. But this council, it's on their minds. You can hear it. They talk about it. It's bothering them. And I know people are still mad at us from last year. And I completely understand that. But I'm just telling you that it's on their minds, and they're trying to figure out how to take care of that.
So, all right, and this might not be a nice question, but what is there, a 50%? What, if you had to put a percentage on it, what would it be that it would pass? Could you do that? 50-50 shot, better than 50, 90%, 10%? You know, what do you think?
Are you talking about
that we could find, that the council can actually find the money to make this happen? If I'm an employee sitting out there, what percentage would you put on that employee getting? So
I hate to put a percentage on it because I don't want to, you know, give people false hope. I just know that people are working on it. As we get further, as this commission has started, it's got work to do. It's got some reports due back in February. I don't know yet, but I do think it's important, without giving anybody false hope, to let people know that it's not like we walked away from it and said, yeah, sorry, we couldn't do it. I think people feel really bad about it, and I think they want to try to do it. And so people are trying to figure out how to make this work.
Let's go to Reverend Fuzz. Hello, Reverend Fuzz.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Yes.
Hello. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Pastor Fuzz, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I wanted to throw a couple of questions and commend the council. Me and a friend watched the other night, and y'all stayed down there at midnight, and I said those 4 people, y'all work hard, and I think people miss that a lot, that you might have 15,000 folk in each district. But here's my question. I've been watching the schools, and I don't know what council can do, but I was reported that a school down the street from my church has a 10% passing rate of their students. And I wondered why our elected officials haven't declared some kind of state of emergency. And then my other question is, can you calculate what you guys call incentives to corporates to build and do things, and that you get it back in, you know, jobs and taxes? Can you calculate maybe one of those kind of companies, maybe a HCA, what we gave them on ARPA land, how much did we calculate that we would get back? And if we were getting those incentives as they work, how are we broke? Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Reverend Fuzz, thank you.
Thank you,
questions
Pastor
a lot
Fuzz.
of people have.
Thank you, Pastor Fuzz, and I appreciate the compliments to the council. The schools, and Pastor Fuzz knows this, council does everything but schools, and the school board takes care of the schools. Now, one of the things that I always think is not necessarily as good as it should be is the connection between the council and the school board. And we really should be spending more time together. But the school board has certain responsibilities. We're not supposed to overstep on that. But in response to what Pastor Fuzz said, it's everybody's responsibility, school board, mayor, council, to figure out if we've got very poor passing rates or very poor rates within schools. This is important. This is one of the most important things that this city has to do. The council controls the budget, doesn't control exactly what happens within the school system. That's the school board. But we need to be helpful. And if we've got problems, and I think Pastor Fuzz says declare an emergency, that's something we all have to get behind and push. And whatever our roles are, we have to push, because he's right.
I have not heard about a school with a 10% passing rate, I think is what he said. Have you?
I don't know which one he's talking about, but
Okay.
I'll probably see him at some point in the next week or so, and he'll tell me, so I'll know. In terms of economic incentives, that's a really good question. So, we have tried to figure out if there's some formula that you can put everything in and say, is this a good deal, or was it a good deal or not? A lot of times that we'll go ahead and, we'll pass the economic incentives. It'll take, 10, 15 years for it to happen, and then by that time people said, well, we're glad they were here, but did it do what it was supposed to? Then you have to figure out, what do you calculate to figure it out and say, good deal or not a good deal. There's not a lot of formulas out there. We actually, I'll say this real quick, we actually got together with some Vanderbilt students that were looking for a project and said, can you all come up with a formula where you can put some of this stuff in and figure out in the end whether, how do you figure out if it makes sense to do it, or if it made sense to do it? And at this point, I don't have the formula. If somebody's got one out there, we'd love to have it, but a lot of times it's trying to figure out, does it benefit the city, and in what ways, and how do you calculate it? It's kind of difficult.
That is fascinating. All right, and there's a whole discussion on that. We have to take a break. All right, we'll take a break. If you're on the line, hold on. If you want to call in, there's the number. Take a break. Be back right after this.